Welcome to the Kitsap Matters podcast. In each episode, we discuss the people, places, and things that make Kitsap County unique, covering local entertainment, restaurants, business, government, and anything else we find interesting, troubling, or just plain amusing. A brief disclosure, this is a community-focused podcast, not a financial podcast, but sometimes financial topics do arise. And since the host is a licensed financial professional, we have to include the following disclosure in every episode. The strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it's in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Kevin Campbell is an investment representative of, and advisory services are offered through USA Financial Securities Corporation, a registered investment advisor located at 6020 East Fulton Street, Ada, Michigan, 49301. Peaks Financial is not affiliated with USA Financial Securities Corporation. All right, welcome to the Kitsap Matters podcast. I'm Kevin Campbell, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Whitney Tatum, founder of Moxie Entrepreneurial Support Services. And Whitney's going to join us to share her expertise in supporting small businesses here in the Pacific Northwest. Whitney, thanks for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
So, as we mentioned, if you've listened to the podcast before, you're probably getting bored of hearing me say this. If you're familiar with Peaks Financial and our podcast, you've probably heard of our sale formula, which is actually right up here on the wall behind me. So the sale formula is the system that we use to manage the financial planning process for our clients. It's all about the key components of our planning philosophy. In the name sale formula, you'll notice that the first four letters are capitalized kind of oddly or uncommonly. That's because it stands for something for us. Family, occupation, recreation, and money. It's all about what matters most and what you can control. What's fun about our planning approach is that it provides a great outline for interviews like this. So today we're diving into Whitney's story and what matters to her. So let's jump right into it.
All right.
Again, thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now you and I, like we were just talking before we got on, we've seen each other at some events and stuff, but we've never really chatted. So this is like one of the first times we're actually sitting down and having a conversation. Mm-hmm. So a little bit this is going to be me getting to know about you and what your story is. So tell me a little bit about, and we're going to follow exactly that, family, it's over here, family, occupation, recreation, money. Tell me a little bit about your family, what your history is, and where are you from? How did you end up in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, so my family are originally from California. My parents grew up there. I was born in Utah. My dad's job took him there. But then I actually grew up outside of Philadelphia. So I am a hardcore East Coaster, which a lot of people kind of figure out once they talk to me. And so, yeah, I went to school in upstate New York at Syracuse University, and I lived in Manhattan for a couple of years. I realized it was a rough life to live. It is a very dog-eat-dog world out there. I saw myself at a young 20-some looking like I was already, in my 40s and 50s. And so, yeah, I picked up and moved out west to Denver. And my family kind of stayed there. My sister went to the Air Force. And then she met her husband over in Oman when they were abroad, and then got married and moved to Arizona. So my parents actually retired in Arizona. They all live in Arizona with my two nephews down there. So, it's been my family, I've always taken these crazy left turns in my life, and my family's always like, okay, where is she going to be next? I lived in South America, so I have a couple of, host moms down there. I kind of joke how I have like family in almost every country in Central and South America. But then, I moved back up in 2019. Actually was going to go to Denver for a job, stopped in Arizona at my parents. Within 3 days of being there, the job got canceled in Colorado. So I got stuck in Arizona. Was going to work there. It's a tourist town. So I was going to work there for the summer just to make some money and go back down. And then I met my ex, and COVID happened. So obviously everyone had to kind of stick where they were. And I was there till about 2022. My ex and I split. We had two businesses together, so we kind of, did that separation. And I never really liked Arizona. It was just too dry and deserty for me. And I had a friend up here in Washington. She's like, come visit. And of course I came in June, and it was like the best time in PNW, right?
Don't come in November if you want. Right?
Yeah. So I loved it. I fell in love with it. The ex and I kind of had to go back, finalize some things. I picked up my dog and moved up. I was staying on the east side, originally liked Issaquah and North Bend area, but it was quite expensive for someone coming from a less expensive state. So a friend of mine moved over to Paulsbo. She's like, hey, check it out over here. And so I did, and I found a place, and it's just, I love it. I love
Paulsbo.
Oh my gosh.
This is the coolest
Yeah.
thing. I mean, I love Kitsap County, and you know, there's several, you know, towns or cities in Kitsap,
Right.
But I love Paulsbo.
Yeah.
Paulsbo is the absolute coolest town around.
Yeah, I like you can go and be in tons of forest, and then, you know, 5 minutes down the road you can go to stores or, you know, restaurants that you need. So yeah, I love that about Paulsbo.
I love that we also still have like an old downtown, you know, the waterfront,
Yep.
and such a strong community.
Yep.
There's places I was visiting someplace the other day up in British Columbia, and it actually kind of reminded me a lot of this area, but it didn't have the same vibe and the same downtown and the same kind of. There's Paulsbo has a certain thing.
Yeah.
A certain thing going for it that makes it very attractive.
Yeah, and it feels very welcoming, and very, you know, comfortable. And so, yeah, I love it here. It's been 2 years and great. I love it.
Yeah,
So,
it's awesome.
yeah.
It's awesome. Cool. So, so you mentioned you're an entrepreneur, you had businesses. Were your parents entrepreneurs? Did anybody in your family have any influence on your career path?
Yeah, my dad, they weren't entrepreneurs. My dad, I wanted to go to art school and out of high school, and my dad said, well, you can either go to art school and struggle the rest of your life, or you can go to business school and figure out how to start like an art business if you want to be in art. So my dad influenced me to go to business school, but my dad is from the generation where you stick in a company. My dad was in the same company for 30 years,
Right.
Literally from mailroom up to executive vice president. And so, you know, I was in the corporate world at one point, and I was moving up quite rapidly, so he kind of saw that I was going on that trajectory. But no, I've always helped people start small businesses because I have like that business and structure brain. I was going to be a lawyer at some point in my life, so I have, you know, read contracts and stuff. But no one's really influenced. My mom's a doctorate in psychology, so no one's really influenced me on that entrepreneur side. I just you know, when I was in Arizona, my ex's business partner was exiting, and I was like, I'll buy in. And I kind of took what I learned and helped people do and put it in the business, and ran the business for, you know, 4 years. And I was like, okay, I like this entrepreneur thing. You know, I'm learning, it's different. Every kind of business is different. We had a moving company and a remodeling company. Services like that are really easy to sell. Consulting is a little harder. So it's been a journey for sure. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the business side and, you know, helping.
Let's
small
talk about that
business
some.
owners.
So
Yeah.
let's jump into occupation. So
Yeah.
let's talk about Moxie, what you're doing there, how you started that, and tell us about your journey with Moxie.
Yeah. So when I was in, you know, I had the moving and remodeling company. I realized that I was doing things I didn't want to do, and I was like, how do I pay someone to do what I don't want to do? And I was like, well, they first have to know how to do it and how I do things. So I started writing standard operating procedures for all the things I did. I'm going to call them SOPs for short, for people who don't know that. And so I just started kind of writing out all the things I did that I didn't like first. And as soon as we made enough money, I hired someone on, and he started kind of doing all of that. And then I was able to focus on marketing and kind of building the business. And I slowly started doing, you know, employee handbooks is a bread and butter of mine, employee onboarding and offboarding processes, training processes. And I just really realized that, like, I saw it firsthand that it helped our business boom. After the first year of putting these processes, procedures, and policies in place, we increased revenue 76% because we kept being able to hire people. Our quality was consistent. Every mover that went to go move acted the same way. And so we just started snowballing into this growing thing. And so, you know, I've been writing standard operating procedures and training manuals since I was, 18, in different jobs that I've had. But I really just saw how much they help small businesses grow. That 5-year range is where small businesses kind of make it or break it. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of the times is because they don't have a foundation. They don't have processes. They don't have structures. And so I saw that. And so when I moved up here, I was kind of figuring out what I was going to do. And I kind of did a temp job of virtual assistant and ended up structuring and writing a whole a new program called their client onboarding specialists and grant writing assistants, and how you do certain things and help their business grow. And I was like talking to the owner, and I was like, I can't be a VA anymore. I mean, I was still doing things that assistants do that I had done when I was in my 20s. And she's like, well, why don't you start a business like doing policy and procedures? Like, no one does that, and everyone needs it. No one likes to do it. And so that's kind of how Moxie was born. Being from the East Coast, I was told my whole life I have Moxie. It's a very, East Coast kind of thing. And, it's defined as just someone who has like courage and determination and, kind of the grit to kind of get things done. And so, I saw this need for small business owners to need help, right? As solopreneurs, as small business owners, we do everything. We're HR, we're this, we're that. And in order to alleviate that, quote, suffering, let's get what's out, like in your head, out on paper, so you can delegate and you can free your mind space, give someone else this so you can be free to do other things, either what you love or help grow the business. So it was just this proven model that showed itself to me. And I love, I volunteer a lot. I do a lot of like activism work. So I'm very big into helping people. And so I was like, how can I combine the two? How can I help small business owners, but also give them something that helps, their business grow and alleviate kind of all that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misconception, right? Because as you said, your business is unique. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the biggest, when you're out meeting people and people hear about you, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about your business?
Well, the first one is it's kind of like a luxury to pay for, right? We've been fine. We've been doing it the same way. Things are fine. It's just status quo kind of thing. So that's a big misconception, is like, we don't really need it. It sounds good, And then the second one I've also found is, a lot of people think it's going to be like really hard, and that they're going to have to do a lot of work for it. But the reality is you do have to take time, but a lot of the time is just sitting there, meeting with me and answering the questions. I make it as easy as possible. All you have to do is answer these, 10 questions I have set for our meeting, and then I go build it. And so, it's just really, again, getting what's in your head about your business out, and I kind of put it together in a puzzle and structure it, so it's a foundation, right? So, because a lot of business owners, they start their business and it's kind of like a lean-to. They just kind of put like that stick and like, okay, I got to do this stick and I got to do this. Yeah. But something can blow it over and knock it over really quickly. I come in and I set that foundation, but a lot of business owners are like, oh, well, that's a lot of work. But I take on that burden. So those are the two big ones. But the first one is very much, people think it's more of a luxury versus a necessity.
What's been that sounds like it might also come, that misconception sounds like it might also provide some challenge as well. Mm-hmm. with how do you help an entrepreneur understand the benefit to them, and what is the benefit? That might be a good place to start, is what is the benefit, and how do you help them understand that benefit?
Yeah, well, the biggest benefit is freedom. That's the first thing, is like, listen, man, I sell freedom, right?
You should have led with that.
Right, I know. As an entrepreneur, we don't have a lot of free time typically. Yeah. We kind of have these plans.
Which is so funny, right? Because that's why most people become entrepreneurs.
Right, that's a big
so I can have freedom.
And that's not what happens unless about 5 years after, maybe. Yeah. But giving that freedom, like, hey, let's just at least get this out of your head, onto paper. First of all, freeing that mind space. Second of all, okay, once you got that and you have like, maybe it's just you can't afford someone, so maybe like your 18-year-old son or daughter will come help, and just have them do this list of things. And so it's just slowly starting to free up their time and space to really, do other things. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really big is mitigating risk. Yeah. As soon as you hire that first employee, your risk shoots through the roof. There's, L&I, there's a lot of other like lawsuits and stuff, so typically it's like, okay, where's your risk here? Where are the things that we should do a policy around or just information on? And just let's mitigate your risk first, because we put a lot of money and time in, and if one big wind blows that lean-to over, it's all gone. Yeah. And then the third one is, where are you leaking money? Like, a lot of people realize when they're doing these things over and over, they're just leaking money. So for example, when I had a remodeling company, our guys never knew how to like clean and operate, like fix and troubleshoot a paint sprayer. And really high paint sprayers are very expensive. So we were spending, upwards of $2,000 a month on new paint sprayers because the guys would just throw them out if they stopped working. So I made my, exit down. I'm like, you need to show me how to fix this paint sprayer. And I wrote it all out. And I made a training manual. We put it in the trucks of the guys. So if they had a paint sprayer broken, they'd go, oh, this is what I got to do. They fix it. And so we just started saving these kind of money here and there where things are leaking. But as an entrepreneur, you don't really have time to step back and think about that. And so that's another thing is I give that space. And we talked about Michelle Doyle. That was the one thing she said. She's like, you kind of stopped me and my partner from kind of building that plane as we fly. We got to look at everything. And that's the biggest thing, especially when you're so bogged down in it every day. I give those entrepreneur spaces to be, hey, like, what do you want this? How do we actually want this to go? And how can we fix those spots? So
that's awesome. So I think when you were talking earlier, when you first started talking about policies and procedures and employee manuals, that was the first thing that came to my mind was mitigating risk, right?
Yep.
Lawsuits and things like that, which when you're a small business, often you don't have to worry about for the first few years because you've got either very few employees or often your employees might be somebody who you already have a relationship with, friends and family kind of thing. But then as it grows and grows and grows, then suddenly those risks start going higher and higher, and the lackadaisical policies that may have been in place before become insufficient.
Yep. Yeah. I run into that a lot too, is that, people have either bought into a business or taken over, that they have these like old outdated, policies or information. And the biggest thing is like, as soon as you get those employees, those questions are going to constant. When's our vacation? What's our vacation like? What holidays do we get off? What's payday? And just also alleviating that kind of, for lack of a better term, annoyance of somebody constantly coming to ask you these questions where, right, let me just write this thing and you can read it kind of thing. So, yeah. And there's a lot of other risks that we can have in a business, but yeah, as soon as you get the employees on, that's the biggest one that starts.
Do you see your profession changing much over in the future? Do you see technology or anything else impacting what you're doing?
Yeah, I actually, AI, of course, there's a lot of tools out there, but I use those for kind of helping write standard operating procedures. There's a couple programs out there that are actually really helpful and that help mitigate that annoyance and kind of extra time that business owners also think that they're going to have to do. So, I don't think, because I use those technologies and they take you to about 60%.
Right.
And the last 40% is a lot of work. So I think they're just going to be more tools versus kind of that competition. You can go buy policy off of like Law Depot, like you can go buy templates. But the thing is, I've crafted my own kind of templates and stuff throughout the years based on different laws and things changing. And, it's more robust than what you're going to go buy. So, if people need to do that because of money and stuff, it's better to have that than, use technology to your advantage. To me, it's not like a competitor. I think it's just a tool.
Yeah. I've been asking a lot of people who come through on our podcast that question because it's interesting to see how people think or don't think that AI is going to impact their world. And we feel the same thing is like, it's not going to replace us. Mm-hmm. It can help us be more efficient, but it's not, at least not in any kind of near form is it going to replace us because it can't understand nuance.
Yep.
It has artificial intelligence. It has no emotional intelligence. It can't understand the little factors. So like you said, it can get you 65% of the way there, but it's the rest of it that you're gonna have to work on.
Yeah.
Cool. So, all right. So when you're not writing policy and procedure manuals or helping people create SOPs, when you're out having fun. So we've talked family, we've talked occupation, now let's get into recreation.
Okay.
What do you do for fun?
Well, the little time that I have as a new entrepreneur in this field, I love, one of the big things that drew me to PNW is the hiking.
Yeah.
When I lived in Denver, I mean, I was hiking all the time. So I take my dog and go hiking, and I love camping. I also do a lot of painting. I love colors and painting and that kind of stuff. So that's something I try to do in winter months when I'm not feeling as motivated to go hiking. But I love hiking. I love that Kitsap has, especially in the summer, like there's so many like festivals or different things that are happening.
It's almost exhausting.
It is exhausting. I'm not gonna lie. I am looking forward to fall because I'm like, yes, it'll slow down. But yeah, I really enjoy that. I'm huge into yoga. I was a yoga teacher in one of my past lives, and so big physical activity. I wish my body wasn't as broken to be able to kind of do sports again, but I wrecked it too much when I was younger. So yeah.
So any hobbies that you think people would find interesting or unusual?
No, I mean, I am learning to embroider, which is hard because I'm a perfectionist. So if like the string doesn't lay right, I'm like taking way too much time to finish a piece. But no, I think my life of travel and kind of the things I've done has been so kind of off the wall and kind of interesting. I think now as I'm getting older, I'm like, I just want to do kind of like the chill stuff. I do go rock climbing once in a while when I can find some like friends that are into it. But I was a really big rock climber for a while. But yeah, nothing like super kind of interesting or
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's see, we're gonna shift into money.
All right.
Talk some money.
All right.
So what, as we talk about money, who or what has had some of the biggest influences in your financial life?
Yeah. My parents kind of came from that generation where you don't really talk about money. And so
which isn't really helpful.
It's not, because I kind of got really screwed when I was my first time getting credit.
Yep.
And I laugh at how naive I was, but it was when I first moved to Denver. I bought a scooter, a moped, on credit. Was really excited because they approved me. Of course, it was really high interest, but fine.
Sure, we'll give you this moped at 24% interest.
Oh yeah, it was really high. And about 2 weeks later, it got stolen. And so I was like, oh crap, okay, well, I went to the place and they're like, oh, well, you can just get another one. Same one, we had the same model. And I'm like, okay, great. So I got it, and I'm like, got my mopeds. Then that next month I get the bill and I'm like, why is this double? And so I call them and they're like, well, you're paying for 2 scooters. And I'm like, yeah, but the other one got stolen. They're like, they laughed at me. They're like, that doesn't erase the amount you owe us.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge like thing in my life, to be like, I don't understand money.
Right.
I don't understand
Maybe I need
credit.
to understand insurance.
Yeah. So I didn't have insurance. Yep, I didn't have insurance. So since then I kind of, my friend.
Don't worry, we'll just give you another one.
Right. They didn't. Oh gosh, I was just such a young 20-some-year-old. And it was tough too, because when I first got into Denver, I was in, like I said, in an oil and gas job, and I was making way more money than I'd ever seen. So I was overspending credit. Got into so much debt, and I just never had a relationship with it because it was just not a thing, right? My parents paid for everything. I didn't really understand. I had jobs here and there, but that was just to go to movies.
Right.
So I got into a financial, like I said, I found my friend was using Dave Ramsey, and we kind of helped each other and do a lot of financial counseling and budgeting, and kind of ever since then, I've just been like, I have a budget. I look every Friday. I sit in the morning, what do I have for the bills next week? And so that's kind of really, very strict on my budgeting. I use a lot of technology tools to help me kind of take money out so I don't see it go into savings. I was taught about, investments in my corporate job and 401ks. But yeah, it's just, people didn't talk about it, so it was rough to learn.
This has been a recurring theme on a lot of our podcasts, is that we spend our whole lives working for money, but very little time learning how to manage it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. People
and
don't.
we see that happen frequently. As clients come in here to Peaks Financial, we hear that all the time of, hey, here's what we've got. I've got these things, these assets. I don't even necessarily understand what I have,
Right.
why I have it, or how to utilize it going forward. But
Yep.
I have this thing, right? I had this job and I had this thing from this job. So
Yep.
what do I do with this now? But it's super important. Having those systems, as you talk about, is great and fantastic.
And one of the bad experiences I also had was like, I did that. As soon as I left my job, I had this 401k, and I didn't know how to like vet a financial like advisor. And I found this, woman, and she like was not good. And this is right as I was going to Peace Corps out of the country. And so I wasn't paying attention because I just trusted her to do it. And I lost like so much money on certain things, and it wasn't the market, because my dad's super into the market, and he was like, no, those years were really great, you shouldn't have lost money. So I think that's really important too, is like finding someone who knows what they're doing and can explain it to you, and isn't just trying to like sell you the products that their company has. So that was huge. That was also a really bad learning experience of like, oh wow, this person wasn't good.
So here at Peaks Financial, we're independents. So we're an independent financial services company, which means we're not tied to nobody. We work for our clients. We don't work for a big corporation somewhere else. We work for our clients, and that's where our obligation is to them, not into representing certain products to them.
Yeah.
But that's unfortunate that happened to you. I had a situation recently where somebody came in, and they have a financial advisor, and we were evaluating their investments. We're like, I just don't feel like things are going as the way they should be, right? Kind of like your story. That's what made me think of this. Is why are the markets going up and we're not? We're losing money and the markets are going up. And we evaluated their holdings and looked at the investments that they're in. And at the end of the day, I said, look, I don't care whether you come work with us or not, but you need to fire this person, right?
Yeah.
If you either need to take it back over yourself or go find somebody else, because this person needs to be fired, because they're doing a horrible job. And it's shocking to me how often we see it. It's not like we see it, a huge percentage of the time, but we see it enough that it's concerning.
Right. And we don't know. Like I didn't know, and like you just kind of assume like, oh, the market's that's just what happens, right? Especially when you're younger, they put you in that high risk type of thing. But then, of course, when I talked with, my dad, it was like, no, we're doing great. Like, that shouldn't be. But that was just because, I had that conversation with my dad. I could have left it with that person for years without knowing. So, that's great. I think people really need to understand. And she never really explained it either. She's like, oh, yeah, I'll just take this and roll it over and all the fancy words. And I'm like, sure, that sounds great.
Sounds wonderful. I'll take two.
Yeah.
So, that actually kind of answers my next question I was going to ask you already, was from your perspective, what's wrong with the financial services industry? But I think we've just nailed that one on the head already.
Yeah, people don't explain things in, terms that people understand.
Yeah.
You see things go up and down. I'm just looking at your TV over there. Like, you can see things go up and down. Obviously, we know up is good and down is bad. But what else? What am I investing in? What do these things mean? Where is this money going, kind of thing? And so, there's
three things I think people should understand. If you're investing on your own, you should understand this. And if you have an advisor investing for you, they should understand this. Is what do you own? Why do you own it? Mm-hmm. And what is going to make a change to that? And under what circumstances? What are the metrics with which you're going to buy or sell, or buy more or sell more? Right. What are all those metrics? And unfortunately, a lot of the industry is still using older passive investment strategies that aren't quite as reactive to the modern world. So it's an interesting world. Keeps me busy.
Nice.
But what you said, something you said a second ago, kind of triggered a thought for me, was that you were saying people need to explain stuff more. And I had a client recently telling me that I should write a book of analogies, because that's actually one of the things I think that I'm really good at here at Peaks is helping people. I'm a financial advisor, but at the end of the day, what I really am is a teacher. I teach people because, we manage things. We manage their money. We manage investments. We help them with all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, I'm a teacher. I teach people how money works. And one of my clients was saying I should write a book on a book of analogies, Kevin's analogies, because I use all kinds of analogies when I'm trying to explain that. Kind of like if somebody ever said, hey, have you had rattlesnake? Right? And they'll say, it tastes like chicken, right?
Yeah.
Right. So when it's because it's a great analogy, right?
Yeah.
And somebody will say, have you ever tried, I don't know, iguana? I don't know.
I have.
Right?
It's
Does
delicious.
it taste like?
It's like a combination of chicken and duck.
See, but it still tastes like chicken.
Yes.
Right. So when you can
Yes.
those analogies, when you can give people and go, it's kind of like this.
Yeah.
It makes it super easy for people to understand, and that's something I think my industry needs to do a lot better of.
Yeah.
So, okay, last question. Best kept secret in Kitsap County. It can be a restaurant, a hike, a waterfall, a business, a whatever. It can be a band. It can be, what are some of the things that you think that are like, hey, this is something that's cool and unique and people might not know about it?
I was actually talking to someone about this. I think it's the Cellar Cat. It's a jazz club in Kingston.
I haven't heard of that.
It is getting really big. They're actually starting to get some jazz people from, what's the big jazz one in Seattle?
Jazz Alley?
Yeah, they're getting a lot of people coming over, and it's awesome. It's a really cool spot. I love Kingston. I'm kind of Poulsbo, Indianola area, so I go to Kingston for a lot of things. I think Kingston is very underrated, and a lot of people don't go there a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people think of it as that's where you're going to get on the ferry.
Right. Yeah.
So, and what's the name of it again?
I think it's the Cellar Cat.
The Cellar Cat.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of live music.
Yes.
Right now we're sponsoring the Poulsbo Waterfront Series.
Nice.
Which means next week I'll be actually singing, which is slightly terrifying to
Oh,
me.
fun.
We're having Rockaroke. Have you ever heard of Rockaroke?
No, but I love karaoke.
It's karaoke with a live band.
Wow, how fun.
Yep, Tuesday night on the waterfront. You
Okay.
can come down there. And I'm the opening singer, which is horrifying to me.
That's awesome.
But so hopefully I won't show it in front of 400 people with a live band. We'll see.
Somehow I think it'll be fine.
I don't know. I'm a little anxious just talking about it. But yeah, so I'm huge. I'm also we're sponsors of the Poulsbo Blues and Jazz Festival, which is awesome. So I'm a huge fan of live music.
I haven't been able to get tickets since I've been here.
Well, you got to get tickets. So last year it sold out. It's already halfway sold out for next February. So
Okay, good to know. I
you
should
should
do
buy
that
tickets.
Now.
Yes.
I don't ever know when it's on sale because I don't go on like social medias
Right.
and stuff. So good to know.
Look it
I'll
up.
get on
They went on sale during the last festival, during the last day, and they sold out a huge chunk of them.
Wow.
Of the tickets sold out the day of last year's festival.
I believe it.
It's going to be a 2-day festival this year. It's going to be awesome.
Nice. Okay.
So I'm involved a little bit on some of the planning with that, with helping them with that, but we're also a sponsor of the Poulsbo Blues and Jazz. Nice. So we will go check out Cellar Cat in Kingston.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about or plug? How do people find you?
Yeah, you can look up Moxie Entrepreneurial Support Services. It's www.moxiesupports.com, or just Google Moxie Entrepreneurial Support Services. I know it's a mouthful, but it's just, it explains what I do.
It does.
So,
It does.
Yeah.
Awesome. Whitney, thank you for being here so much. It's been fun getting to know you. That's another wrap for another episode of the Kitsap Matters podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. A brief disclosure. This is a community-focused podcast, not a financial podcast, but sometimes financial topics do arise. And since the host is a licensed financial professional, we have to include the following disclosure in every episode. The strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it's in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Kevin Campbell is an investment representative of, and advisory services are offered through USA Financial Securities Corporation, a registered investment advisor located at 6020 East Fulton Street, Ada, Michigan, 49301. Peaks Financial is not affiliated with USA Financial Securities Corporation.